Hi, this is Dominic Glynn, composer from Doctor Who in the 80s. You're listening to the Legend of the Traveling Tardis radio show.
From Krypton Radio and the creators of the Hangin with web show, it's the Legend of the Traveling Tardis. Look inside and behind the scenes to one of the most enduring and beloved sci-fi worlds. Step inside the door to a world that's bigger, brighter, and beyond imagination. As you become a part of the Legend of the Traveling Tardis. And now, your host, Christian Basil.
A bunch of people on Twitch going, what is going on there? So for all you lovely watchers on Twitch, you have just gotten an interesting treat within the last minute and a half. Hi there, folks. Welcome for all of you joining us. Welcome to the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS. For those of you just joining us for the very first time, welcome. Thank you for listening. My name is Christian Basil. I am the host of this runaway train, and with me today... I'm going to let them introduce themselves because they know what I've been through today. So I'm going to introduce Melanie Dean. And Miss Dean, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Melanie Dean. I am an artist. I do a lot of the con circuit. I'm on Etsy. I do all that kind of fun stuff. The people on the Twitch can see some of my stuff behind me because I did not put that at all purposely. Anywho, that's my spiel. And And then hopefully I can do a little bit more heavy lifting today during our little episode. Same thing with Mackenzie, who's going to be taking it next, since Mr. Christian Basil had a little dental work done.
A little
bit.
That's right. We're moving on to Mackenzie Flohr. And Miss Mackenzie Flohr, tell us a little bit about your author work and where people can find
everybody. You. Yeah. So I'm Mackenzie Flohr. I am a multi-award-winning author of the Right of Wands. That's my series. For those who are Matt Smith fans, you'll definitely want to check that out. Dr. 11 there, you'll see a part written for him. He's a fan of the show, or I should say of the series. I also hosting for Wizard World, Galley, Michigan Comic-Con. I even do Motor City. I don't know yet, but I'm going to be on a panel there. I do MarCon, Cleveland Concoction, etc. So, hi!
Oh, you're famous.
Yay!
All the way around.
I know, famous lady. I know famous author.
He's just famous. I've been here, and here.
Someday.
I go all over the place. Speaking of going all over the place, which is kind of probably the worst transition I ever had, we're going to the Who Knew News with Sage. Yeah, Sage. Go for
it. Okay, after that lovely intro, I shall deliver some news for everybody. First off, I don't know if anybody knows, but we just came off of International Women's Day.
Yes, we did.
That was last week. That's exactly right. And Big Finish decided to go ahead and celebrate International Women's Day with the release of Doctor Who the 8th of March. Mm-hmm. So that was a celebration of all the strong female characters from the Doctor Who universe. And it explores some of the amazing female characters that were there for more than 50 years of the BBC show of Doctor Who, so that is fantastic. Oh. Yay! Everybody say yay! Yeah, okay.
Oh, sorry. Well, no, I love the fact that they went the whole 50 years, that they did cover, like, Susan. They covered Romana 1 and Romana 2. Then, you go to New Who, you get, they cover Rose and River and, everyone else. I like the fact that they did the whole kind of gamut of women in Who.
I feel bad because I didn't want anybody, I haven't heard it yet, and I don't want anybody going like, oh, because you're a guy, you're just not going to listen. I'm like, no, I'm going to listen. Do you know how much stuff Big Finish puts out there? I will go completely broke, but I will make time for it. I just caught up with an episode that we're going to be talking about later, which is Scratchman. But Sage, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, earlier, for all our Twitch fans out there, we were talking about anniversaries because today is the 30th anniversary of the World Wide Web. But it also happens to be the 20th anniversary of The Curse of Fatal Death, which obviously,
oh my God.
Yes, the parody starring Rowan Atkinson, which interestingly enough,
female doctor,
I didn't realize was also written by Stephen Moffat.
Yes.
So I thought that was really cool. And that was broadcast as a part of a charity telethon because most of us remember Comic Relief.
I think everybody got their wish because certain people got to be the Doctor for at least 5 minutes, or at least a minute for Jim Broadbent. I think he should have been longer. That's my opinion. But they had actors. They started off with Rowan Atkinson, which everybody wanted him to be a Doctor eventually at one time. So we got to finally see it. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was a guy who's not unknown to Doctor Who. He's been in 2 episodes. Richard E. Grant. Who, if anybody knows about Doctor Who mythos, is a doctor. And not only in that episode, but technically he was for about a couple months. And if anybody remembers the episodes, The Screams of the Shelka, he played what then would have been the 9th Doctor, but and he was going to be part of the canon, but BBC and Russell T Davies surprised everybody. Said, no, we got a new 9th Doctor. So I felt really bad that he just basically got kicked to the curb as being a 9th Doctor. And it was kind of an animated short. That's not even the case to say an animated short. I think it was like half an hour, maybe even longer.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've seen it. But it had a stellar cast. It was really interesting and it was really fun. So if you can find it somewhere out there, it's The Scream of the Shelka. And then Hugh Grant came on before he went completely in the weird sense. And my guide, Jim Broadbent, was on there as the shy Doctor. And lo and behold, we've got what could have been arguably our first female Doctor, Joanna Lumley, at the very end. Spoiler alert. So that, if you get a chance, go ahead and check it out there. But happy anniversary to the internet and Curse of Fatal Death.
I thought that was so much fun. And my last piece of news is that Jodie Whittaker was offered the freedom of the City of London.
I saw that.
Yes. So, and she was one of more than 100 women who will receive the freedom of the City of London. They're going to commemorate the centenary of the Representation of the People Act of 1918. Everybody who was chosen, they have a wide range of backgrounds, but everyone has a connection to the city. And Jodie's in particular was that she was trained at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, based in London. So, and actually, the freedom of the City of London was believed to have begun back in 1237 and enabled people to carry out trade. Isn't that kind of interesting? And it's still going on today. So,
I think we should all make a trip there so we can get something for internet celebrating its 30th anniversary.
Okay, let's go.
I think we should just make a trip to London. And that's my news.
And that's your news for today. Well, before we get into our interview with Classic Who composer Dominic Glynn, which is still kind of my favorite. He actually, for me, he's right up there with Murray Gold, but I don't want competing composers on that one. And the poll, the Traveling Tardis poll, what do you think of? And Dominic said it right, and I said it wrong. It's Segun Akinola.
I think it was Segun
Akinola as composer for Doctor Who. Now, interesting enough, we really didn't get that much response. 45 votes as opposed to other polls. So anybody want to take a shout out as to what percentage liked Mr. Akinola as far as being a composer for Series 11? Mackenzie, you want to take a shot? What percentage of those 45 people like him?
Ooh, I'm going to have to say, since there was only 45, I'm going to say, in this case, once I get my cat's butt out of my face, I'll say 50%. I'm going to be generous there.
Melanie, what kind of percentage do you think?
I'm thinking around this. I'm going to go a little bit higher. I'll go to about 60 because I think a lot of people just haven't really listened and because there's 45 people.
And Sage, you and the team, what do you think is the percentage that Mr. Akinola has obtained as far as those 45 people?
I think I'm going to put it somewhere around 55%.
55%. Well, Melanie hit it right on the nose at 60%.
Woo-hoo-hoo, Melanie.
Yay! And I didn't even have a screenshot to look at. I couldn't cheat.
Okay, well, there you go. There's your screenshot right there.
Ah! I was looking at the class one. I was like,
no, you were looking at okay, so you weren't cheating. So I'm interesting enough, 45 people. Most of our polls are in the triple digits, and one poll got 4 digits. So I don't know if nobody knew how to respond. I don't know. Well, I also know Facebook algorithms are really wonky these days. So, and we post a lot of content, so it might have gotten buried. But I meant 45 people saying that 60% of those 45 people saying they like him, 40% not. Does anybody have any reason why, it swings that way?
I think it's because it's still his first season, and maybe it just hasn't gotten to that memorable kind of thing yet, where he hasn't really made a lot of motifs where people have caught on like you have with Murray Gold. So the longevity isn't there yet, where you haven't got that muscle memory. But I give him time. I think it'll be good.
And speaking of time, we are up against a hard commercial break. When we get back, my ibuprofen will finally kick in. In the meantime, stay tuned and stay long on and continue to become part of the legend. It's a hashtag now.
Authors, filmmakers, producers, anybody that has anything to do with creating independent stuff, comic book authors, musicians. Make sure you take advantage of the 2019 Indie Originals Live Talent Competition, going on now at www.indieoriginalslive.com. This is your exclusive opportunity to become an official award-winning independent creator to use that in your marketing. Enter today at www.indieoriginalslive.com.
Who's who, what's hot and what's not. 2019 saw some amazing new creative talents, and now you can peek behind the scenes at the hottest indie creative artists in this year's edition of 25 Hottest Indie Authors, Artist Advocates 2019 magazine. Published by the renowned And I Thought Ladies, this is a one-of-a-kind look into the brightest rising stars in the creative universe. Get yours today at magcloud.com and at andwethought.com.
Famous Faces and Funnies in Melbourne, Florida is leading the way in pop culture fun. From comic books and graphic novels to Funko Pops and collector's items, Famous Faces and Funnies has it all. Rick Shea and the professional team at Famous Faces and Funnies are friendly and knowledgeable. Whether you're looking for toys, props, collector treasures, or new comic book, Famous Faces and Funnies is your one-stop shop. To find Famous Faces and Funnies on Facebook and Twitter, just type at FFF Comics. The Right of Wands. One boy, one right, and a world of deadly secrets that could change the course of history forever. It's time for The Right of Wands by Mackenzie Flohr. When a horrible fate reveals itself during the Right of Wands ceremony, Myrda must find a way to change his destiny. Forbidden from revealing the future, he is granted a wand and magical powers in order to save himself and those he loves. But Myrda is not the only one with secrets. The Right of Wands by Mackenzie Flohr, available on Amazon.com now.
Hello, sweeties. I'm Crystal Moore. I play the Doctor in fan series Doctor Who Velocity. You're listening to The Legend of the Traveling Tardis radio show.
And welcome back to the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS radio show. Thank you for joining us here on Krypton Radio, on iHeartRadio, on iTunes, wherever you're listening to us at inside the Whoniverse and outside the Whoniverse. Welcome, and thank you for continuing to listen to us. We have a very special guest on the show today. For those of you classic Whovians, you will definitely know the show, especially if you've gone to conventions, especially to Gallifrey 1. But first, let me introduce the panelists. We have my good friend, author Mackenzie Flohr. We have our friends from Krypton Radio. We have... you guys introduce yourselves. I'm always doing the introduction. You two introduce yourselves.
I'm Susan Fox, she who must be obeyed. And my husband.
Oh my.
Mm-hmm. And my husband, Gene Turnbow.
Should she be obeyed?
Hi-yo. Hello there. This is Station Manager Gene Turnbow here.
Do we obey Gene as well?
After me.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, not so.
And I want to invite our special guest, who is on the line, Mr. Dominic Glynn. How you doing, Dominic? It's been a while.
Yeah, hi. Good to speak to you. Yeah, really good to be here.
You too now.
It's been a while. I think last time I spoke to you would have been at Galley, which would have been in 2016, I think.
No, even further back, because I've never even been to Galley, but you were in
really?
Orlando once. You were in Orlando once, yeah, and that's where I met you there.
Oh, okay, yeah, that figures. Yeah.
Long time ago. I think I don't think we had a 1 in the second digit. I think it's like. So that's where we met and we talked and we had a great time there. But Dominic, just for a moment, for those who just been introduced to New Who or am not familiar with the classic Who, can you just give us a little brief synopsis about yourself and how you got started as a composer?
Yeah. Well, I worked on Who between 1986 and 1989, and I composed music for the show for, I think it was 14, 15 episodes. I can't remember how many episodes offhand. I'll tell you. I started on the show basically by just contacting John Nathan Turner, who was producing the show at the time, and I originally wrote to him, I think in 1983 or 84, pretty much pleading for a job. And
isn't that all best artists always do that?
I think so. I just sent him some samples of what I was doing as a keyboard player. At the time, I was a keyboard player in a band. And I just wanted to get into TV and film music and all that sort of thing. So I thought, what better place to start? And one of my favourite TV shows, and also a show that has synthesised music, electronic music as its soundtrack. So, I genuinely thought this is something I'm capable of. I could do this. So I just wrote a cheeky letter to the producer, and sure enough, he sort of was interested, and we exchanged a few letters. And I sent him various demos, and they went back and forwards. Kind of coincided with the time that the show went off the air for a while. So when I was first writing to John Nathan Turner, it was before the year off, when the future of the show was a bit uncertain. So I think initially I probably would have been working on the show in what was the cancelled season. But as it turned out, I started working on the show for Trial of a Time Lord.
Got it. Now, what started your musician career? What gave you the bug to say, no, I want to become a composer?
That's a good question. Well, I think I always was interested in two things. I wasn't interested in music. I came from quite a musical family. All the people in my family play some kind of instrument. My brother is a professional pianist and piano teacher. My mother used to teach children piano, not on a professional basis, but she was a musician. There's always music around the house, and so I was always fascinated by that. And also, at the same time, I was just a TV fanatic, and I used to spend all my time sat in front of the TV, particularly sat in front of science fiction and Doctor Who and Lost in Space and all that kind of stuff that I grew up with during the 60s and 70s. And to me, putting the two together and doing electronic music or even, orchestral music, whatever it was, combined with TV, it was absolutely completely right up my street. So for a while, I played keyboards in a band, and it was a kind of early 80s synth pop band. We weren't very good, to be honest, but I kind of got a bug, and I really wanted to do music for a living, and I wanted to combine it with TV, and that's really how it started.
So you begged the BBC and said, "Hey, I need a job." I think Tom Baker said the same thing to the BBC as well.
Right. It can work, yeah.
And so, were you a Whovian before you became a composer for the show? Were you aware of Who? Or
it's difficult to work out what the answer to that is. I remember John Nathan Turner saying to me, "Are you a Doctor Who fan?" I was very aware of the fact that there was a little bit of antagonism between fandom and John Nathan Turner. It was a difficult relationship, shall we say, at that point. And he was a little bit wary of fans, many of whom were sort of trying to infiltrate the BBC and to get secrets about the new show out into the public domain, all that sort of stuff. And so I was a bit wary when he asked me, "Are you a fan?" I didn't know whether I should say, "Yes, I am, I love the show, know all about it," whether to say, "No, hang on, remind me, what's Doctor Who again?" So I cleared a middle ground, which actually is about right. I always loved Doctor Who, particularly as a child. It was my favourite programme. No getting away from it. Now, even now in my loft, I've got little comic books I used to make up, doing my own drawings of, Dalek stories, and I used to cut things out of other comics and make up my own stories and everything. So clearly that qualifies me for being a Who fan. But no doubt I wasn't a Who fan. I wouldn't have described myself as a Whovian in the sense that I kind of had drifted away from being a fan. I still used to watch it, but I think by the time I became a late teenager, I kind of stopped being a regular viewer every week, and some of the Tom Baker stuff, and I didn't really know it all. So I wouldn't describe myself as a pure Who fan, but definitely it was one of my favourite shows growing up, and something I was incredibly excited to be involved with when I got the work.
Were you busy learning your craft as a musician at the same time? Were those two?
Yes, although I was never trained, so I kind of learnt on the job, if that makes sense. I was never a trained musician, so I mentioned my brother earlier. We down the two completely diverse paths musically. So I never learnt to read music, although I did have a brief time learning violin when I was at school, but it was a horrendous mistake and not kind on anybody who was listening. But from my point of view, I just taught myself keyboard. So we had a piano at home, and I just used to bash out songs that I used to write myself. And so by the time I was working on Doctor Who, I'd had a few years as the key player in this synth band, and I'd got to understand synthesizers and got a love for electronic music, but also film scores. I was really into film scores and TV themes, big thing that I was into. So I was kind of learning as I went, and sort of in many ways bluffing my way into it. And I think it's a lot of people call it imposter syndrome. I definitely felt as though I thought, how on earth did I get this work? Especially when John Nathan Turner asked me to rearrange the theme tune. So that wasn't the first thing I approached John about doing at all. I hadn't even thought about touching the theme tune. I just wanted to write incidental music for the show, and the request from John to actually rearrange the theme tune was something entirely unexpected. And I definitely thought, hang on, am I worthy? am I worthy to do such a great work on such a great piece of music? It's a great recording. The original recording was amazing, and the rearrangement by Peter Howell was also amazing. So I thought, hang on, why is he asking me to do this? He obviously has some faith in what I can do, even if I don't. So I was kind of learning how to do all these things under the pressure of knowing it's going to be on TV in a month or so. So that's how I worked it, really.
I think one of you guys, I think you with Kevin, a couple of other composers wrote like a mixture of different variations of the Doctor Who theme. And don't tell the others, but yours is my favorite, the horror one. That is my complete favorite. It just starts off mysterious, and then all of a sudden the orchestra comes out of nowhere, bum bum bada bada bada, and it's like it's one of my favorite takes on the theme. And you did a remake of it, right? Just recently.
Yeah, I did.
Something
I got into recently. I mean, obviously, I haven't worked on the actual show since 1989 when the thing went off the air. So in the boys' last episode, but there's always been some connection with the show ever since. Whether it's been through Big Finish using my themes or whatever, convention appearances, all this kind of thing. But I did. It was Gallifrey actually. My first visit to Gallifrey in I think it was 2014. I did a panel, and it just occurred to me that it might be interesting for me to take my laptop on stage and do a little bit about my arrangement of the theme. And as I thought more about what I might do, that turned into me doing a remix of it. And so the very first remix I did was of my arrangement of the theme to Doctor Who, which was the Gallifrey remix. Mm-hmm. And people liked it. I did it on stage with your laptop, and people kept saying, "Oh, can I buy it?" And all this sort of stuff. And I hadn't even thought about releasing it. But obviously people were interested, and so it turned into me doing several remixes, and that in turn ended up doing 3 EPs of remixes. Wow. And one of the tracks was, so I did remixes of my incidental music, all kind of contemporizing the music I did for the show in the 80s, but bringing it up to date using lots of elements from the episodes, but actually making new music out of it. And one of the tracks was that terror version of the Who theme, which I had lots of requests to do a version of. So that was, I think, on the second EP or the third EP I did.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, talk more about. I think it's No Bones Records. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes, so No Bones Records was my record label, which I'd had since the 1990s. So in the early 90s, I started getting heavily involved in making techno house music, chill out, ambient, acid, all that kind of stuff on the UK dance music scene. And so I recorded for a couple of different labels. And then I thought, hang on, I want my own label, where I can actually have control over what I'm putting out. So I started No Bones Records and put out a number of dance music EPs on vinyl and also CDs. And so it was my stuff. Some of it was friends, some of it was stuff that I'd been sent I really liked. And so I kept the label going, although other work kind of got in the way of it during the 2000s and into the more recent years. But I still got the label going, and so No Bones really is out there for me to release these EPs on. But it's been relatively dormant for quite a while. But as I say, it's been quite useful for me to have a label on which to put the remix EP.
Mm-hmm. What piece of music are you most proud of that you've done?
Blimey, that's a really, that's really.
Is that like comparing which child is your favorite out of 13?
Which is your favorite ear?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you asked me one day, I'd answer something different. I mean, it does change. I mean, Doctor Who-wise, I'm very proud of what actually was the very first piece I wrote for Doctor Who, which was the opening scene to Dial of a Time Lord. Partly because the just sort of emotional attachment to the show. It's the very first thing I ever did. I did that when John Nathan Turner asked me to do a final demo before he sort of finally gave me the thumbs up to work on the programme. He sent me the script of Try the Time and said, take scene 1 and write me a piece of music for scene 1. And so that's the piece I wrote. And I adapted it a bit once I'd got the video footage because it was originally written to the script.
I think we've been playing that on Krypton Radio, in fact.
Have you?
I believe so.
Good taste.
So that's the piece where the TARDIS is, where the screenshot is flying around what I call the floating trial room, right?
Yeah, it was very, very.
That's a brilliant piece.
Well, thank you. I was lucky enough to have very good visuals, so it did help, and also very good scripts to inspire me when I first wrote it. So it was a Robert Holmes script, and it was beautifully described. This space station, like a cathedral, as it said in the script, which is why I ended up using a church organ sound at the beginning of it, and bell, and to get that really grand cathedral-like feel to it. So, as far as music from Doctor Who's concerned, that's sort of one of the things I'm most proud of, and it's another thing I did a remix of a couple of years ago as well. But generally, I mean, well, it's so difficult. I mean, I've written some film scores recently, which I'm proud of. I worked on a couple of films. You've Been Trumped 2 was the most recent one I did, and there's some music in there that I'm pleased with. But that's one of the most recent things I've done. But also going back to when I was doing dance music. There was a track which, weirdly, I've had loads of interest in. I think 1992, who wrote with a friend of mine, Justin Mackay, and that keeps cropping up in my emails. People saying, "Where can I get hold of this record?" Obviously, somebody's playing it somewhere in clubs specialising in 90s dance music, because a track called "Life Forever" by Mind Control, the name we put it out. I'm proud of that in the sense that it was my sort of introduction into making dance music, or one of my first dance music tracks. So I'm quite pleased with that, and an album I did as well with Syzygy, which was another name for the outfit I was with Justin Mackay. So that's kind of stuff that sticks in my memory. But I have to say, I've written about 500, no, probably more than that, 600 tracks which are out there currently published some way or other. So it gets a bit confusing.
Wow, that is an incredible volume of work. That's just
amazing.
Yeah. That is a lot of work.
Let me go back just a little bit for people who Dominic was explaining about You've Been Trumped and You've Been Trumped 2. Yes, it's what you think it is. There was a 2011 documentary from British filmmaker Anthony Baxter about, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's about him constructing a luxury golf course out there. And You've Been Trumped 2 is about the election of Donald Trump into the series, if I'm not mistaken. So if you want to check out his...
There was another one in the middle called Aimstein as well, which is the golf industry as well. And luxury golf courses around the world are very often built in places that really shouldn't have golf courses, like for example, the desert, where there's no water, so they're not the most ecological idea sometimes. So, it was a trio of films, basically. And so I wrote a lot of music for those films. So.
And speaking of being trumped, we are on a hard break. When we return, we're going to continue our interview with classic composer of the Doctor Who series, Dominic Glynn. When we return, please continue to listen and stay tuned and become part of the legend.
Channeling the Mothership is an exciting journey into the higher mysteries. Certified psychic medium clairvoyant Jerry McDaniel's readings, writings, and messages have been received by thousands of people in more than 45 countries. These messages have been obtained by channeling his higher self. How does he do it? Is it a blessing or a curse? And what lay beyond the reach of your five senses? Channeling the Mothership. Explore the mysteries of the spiritual and the metaphysical. Channeling the Mothership by author Jerry McDaniel. Available on Amazon.com today.
Best-selling and award-winning author of true crime and crime fiction, Yvonne Mason is back with a brand new book, The Pink Canary, a book that delves into the life of a drag queen and a marvelous whodunit. You can find this and all of Yvonne's other works on Amazon.com. or find Yvonne Mason on Facebook and Twitter.
He's gonna kill me.
Buy your copy of Pink Canary now.
It's Germany, 1938. Charlotte's a 15-year-old girl living in the Jewish quarter. George lives in the city proper, and enamored by Charlotte's charm and grace when she wanders into his cobbler shop, George decides right then and there that he is going to marry her. Follow along as this unlikely couple struggles to stay one step ahead of the Gestapo and their dramatic escape from Nazi Germany. Good things always happen in springtime, from author Joanne Fisher on Amazon.com today.
You know who I might be, but that's not important. What I've come here to tell you today, that is, if you are an independent creator, if you make movies, if you're an author, if you make music, you should enter the Indie Originals Live Talent Competition. Hundreds of categories and lots of prizes will be awarded, but the clock is ticking. Visit www.indieoriginalslive.com right now. www.indieoriginalslive.com.
Now on Amazon.com, iCoin from author Jeremy Mosby. It's an alternate reality, and the leader of the planet iCoin is none other than Benjamin Franklin. When corrupt officials threaten not only iCoin but the Earth as well, an unlikely chosen one, Jeremy, must face dark foes to save the Earth and iCoin alike. Author Jeremy Mosby takes readers on a superhero's adventure through this compelling and imaginative alternate universe. Get iCoin on Amazon.com today.
And we're back. Thank you for staying with us here at the Legend of the Traveling Tardis radio show, your Crypto Radio, your iHeart, your iTunes, for anything Doctor Who in the Whoniverse and beyond. My name is Christian Basil, your host, and with me is author Mackenzie Flohr and our team. Hey there. And our team from Krypton Radio. We have the lovely Gene Turnbow.
Hello. That wasn't the name I thought you were going to say.
He's lovely.
And the ultimate lovely Susan Fox.
Hi.
And now that we've gotten through some technical issues, we also have the lovely artiste Melanie Dean.
Hello.
And then
get in.
You were having some technical issues, so you take the first question for Dominic. Go for it.
Okay, well, on the vein of technical issues and fun and all that kind of thing, my question that I've been just kind of poring over about is, over your career, how technology is always very, very kinetic, and it's always changing and evolving at an accelerated rate. What kind of tools have you seen that have been developed that have helped you in composing? Whereas, like I say, 15 years ago, nobody would even thought that you could load up a program on your computer and either write music or just play out things that it would just spit it back out to you, and you didn't have to use your, the ear in your mind to go, okay, this is what I think it sounds like. So, What kind of stuff that have you used that you're like, oh my, I've needed this all my life?
Oh my God! Well, it's just unrecognizable the way the technology has changed. So when I started working on Doctor Who, I was working with really primitive stuff. I didn't have a computer. I didn't have MIDI, which is, for people who don't know, it's the way one piece of musical equipment connects to another piece of musical equipment. It's crucial. So I didn't have that. It was basically a couple of synthesizers, which I had, and a tape machine, and that was kind of it. So I was literally playing old style with my fingers on the keyboards, recording in real time, and then multi-tracking. And as far as the video side of things was concerned, the BBC send me VHS videotapes, and I was to stick them in a home video machine, press play, and attempt to synchronise by, waiting for a thing to happen on screen. I was looking at the time code where I knew that something had to happen at 4 minutes and 10 seconds or whatever it was, and press play on my machine, and then sync it up manually. Absolute nightmare. And half of the time that was allocated to writing the music for an episode was actually spent trying to make the blooming thing sync up. Whereas now, all these years later, it's another world. It's so much more straightforward because you have one computer which is controlling everything, and the video's run on the computer, the music software is running on the computer. You press play on the computer and the music starts at the same time. It's totally locked in. Could only have dreamed of that back in 1986. And also as a sort of starting out musician. And when I first wrote to Jonathan Turner, I was 23, and not long after school, didn't have much equipment, hadn't any money. So on my radiophonic workshop with a budget of equipment, I was literally making do with 2 synthesizers. As time wore on, obviously technology improved, so I and my ability to own some of it improved as well. So I ended up getting more equipment, it grew, and then over time technology's improved so that now if I work on film, for example, you can quite reasonably sound like a full orchestra using software. And the time it takes is reduced massively because you can make very high quality sound using just the equipment within the computer. So the technology hasn't been something I'm scared of or put off by. It's been something that has been an immense boon to the composer of music, TV or film. The only downside to it is because it's so much easier to do, you're competing with so many more people that want to do it. So that being a sort of double-edged sword thing, really, and balancing the two things. When I started doing Doctor Who, there weren't thousands and thousands of people trying to do music technology for a living. Now that's actually consider that as a career path.
Now, when you were getting the tapes back then, were they the finished edit, or were you still getting stuff that they could go back and say, oh, well, we edited it even further down, so we need you to rescore section parts?
Generally speaking, I was getting the finished edit. So before each episode was going to be scored, I'd go usually to the Radiophonic Workshop, although I had to do with them directly. We used to go there to view the episodes with the director and Dick Mills, who did all the special sound. And we would be given. I'd come away from there with a finished tape of the episode as the edit, the final edit. So very rarely, in fact, I don't know if I ever had a version after I'd written it that then adjusted. I think I always I came to the scene once the episode had been edited. I would get the script earlier on, obviously, and there'd be discussions about it and everything early on. But before I actually started working on an episode, it would be a finished edit.
Now, for all you millennials, we don't have time for shows, so everything Dominic said you can Google or find on YouTube on how all this used to work. I mean, because with the technology now, I'm sure it's far easier to translate all your music and conduct everything. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's
today's technology.
It's just the idea of working with just a tape machine where everything is done in real time. It's just a different world. I feel like it's almost the difference between having an iPad and having a gramophone. The sort of technology difference is so immense in what to me seems like a relatively short time. I know, as you say, to some of these millennials, it does seem like a very long time ago. But it's recent history.
For you millennial, the pain was real because when we got on the internet, it was.
Yeah.
Me. You know what I'm talking about here. Honey, millennials are 30 years old now. I think we need to find another group to insult, okay?
I always kind of find that the whole, when it comes to something generational, when it comes to millennials or generational, and it's also the equalizer to that is if you grew up poor or poorer. Because I'm 39 and I can tell you exactly what a skate key is. I can tell you all the 50s toys and 60s toys that came out before my time because that was just the stuff that you found and there were the hand-me-downs. Yeah. So I think there's some kids out there that would, if I said doing a linear edit of something, they might know what I'm talking about. Maybe.
Yeah. But there's also an interest in the way things used to be done. There's a lot of people who would actually want to work, for example, with tape. Because it does have its advantages as well. A lot of it is people will actually view. You could almost sort of look back and go quite nostalgic about tape. It's the analog sound and all kind of thing. I'm totally in favour of that. I love analog, and there's a lot of me would like to be working on tape again, but it sounds great. But, there are a lot of downsides to it. The actual advantages of working digitally are huge.
So speaking of that, I want to jump in here since we're talking about different things. I know that you've done Big Finish. What's the difference between composing for Big Finish versus doing something like the show?
Well, from my point of view, massively, because the work I did for Big Finish didn't involve me, really. I just to give permission them to use what I had done. So I haven't really written scores for Big Finish. They just asked if I could allow them to use my theme arrangement for Wim Baker's Doctor Who stories, which I was more than happy to do, because my theme arrangement sadly was only used for the Trial of a Time Lord season. And Colin particularly refers to it as his theme, which is really nice. He considers that to be his theme, and so it's nice that that's the version that now represents Colin Baker on Big Finish, and it's kind of given it a long life, which he didn't have on screen. So I'm very, very pleased about that, really. But as far as working for Big Finish, it's been very straightforward for me. I haven't had to do anything.
But yeah, one of the things that I'm just taking off to the side because I just want to give Big Finish credit. For every Doctor, when they play the background music, it's always been the feel of the Doctor during that time.
Yeah.
So if they're playing Pertwee, they're playing music that was during his time. They're playing Colin. They're playing Colin for the music that you wrote during his time as the Doctor. And I'm like, it gives it not only that, but it gives me the feeling I'm there during that time when I was listening.
Yeah, it's really good, very, very effective, and it's so nice for me to know that my work's still being used on Who now.
Do you have anything coming up on the pipework right now?
Yeah, I've got several things. I'm working on another film with Anthony Baxter at the moment. So I'm working on a film which is going to be with Alec Baldwin as well at the moment. So this is a film about the Flint water crisis.
Oh, I think
I think I've heard of this.
I actually am from Michigan, so hearing about, and I work in Flint, so that's wonderful.
Yeah, well, you'll know all about it. It's going to be. This is a very interesting take on what's going on in Flint and has gone on. So I'm sort of in the finishing touches on that film at the moment. Hopefully, that will be in cinemas next year, later this year, all being well. So I'm doing that, and I'm also doing three different projects, which are all production library music. So the vast bulk of the music I do these days is for TV and film, but it's not always written specifically for a film or TV program. It's music that's published for the express purpose of being available for filmmakers and TV producers to use in a finished program. Mm-hmm. And so the briefs are wide and varied, and I'm doing an album music related to Scandinoir dramas. So I don't know if you Scandinoir in America, but it's in Europe. It's a very big, thick drama from Scandinavia with a sort of dark, grey skies, moody, usually grisly murders, something sort of quite sort of grim.
They're getting to infiltrate here. We've got one release right now.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I suppose it's the girl with the dragon tattoo. Is that?
That's
okay.
One.
Yeah, because I can think of a few movies that fit in that, but I don't think we've come out with, or at least over here, it's been marketed as that's a specific genre. Yeah. But yeah, I can get that feel.
Well, I think the Woman at War or whatever, that one, the new Icelandic one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So this is an album of music sort of inspired by that kind of TV, and it's for partly for documentaries and partly for drama and anybody who needs to use music like that. So I'm doing that. I'm doing an album of very, very minimalist electronic music as well, and a piano albums as well, solo piano as well. So there's quite a few different projects all going on at the same time at the moment, which is nice.
Dominic, we just got a few minutes left, and I really wanted to get this question in. Do you watch the new Doctor Who? Have you seen?
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you feel that how Murray Gold and I'm going to get this wrong. Sagan Akinola, did I get that right?
Yeah.
How do you feel their take is on the series now?
I'm a big fan of Sagan's new music for the show. I think he's done it in a way that's kind of close to how I would do it if I was doing Doctor Who now. So every episode he's treated differently. Mm-hmm. So one of the great joy about the classic Doctor Who shows, I think every story usually a different composer. Not in the 70s actually. David Tennant did a lot of it. He did a lot of stuff. But a lot of the other series of Doctor Who history, a different composer did a different story. The result was that each story, which is very often set in a different environment, different zone, has a completely different genre feel to it, would have a different score. And that's how I think Doctor Who should work. You treat each story completely differently. And Sagan's kind of done that. So he, I would say, doesn't have a moody sort of style, because he looks at each story and thinks, what does this story need? And there's different sort of instruments, a different, totally different feel for the instrumentation. Some of them are more electronic, some are more orchestral, some have got a more kind of organic, almost band type feel. Just depends on the story. So I really like the direction he's taken it in.
Would you ever go back if they asked you? I'm sure you would.
I'd be a fool to say no, wouldn't I?
Yeah, exactly.
I'd love to do some more. But again, given the choice, I'd actually suggest to the producers of now that maybe they could consider having 2 or 3 composers who work on Doctor Who, and we take it in turns, because that's what happened in the 80s. So when I was working on the show, me and initially the Radiophonic Workshop people, and then the following years, McCulloch, and after that Mark Ayres, we were sort of taking it in turns on stories, and I think that really worked. Apart from anything else, you go to it fresh. You're not tempted to use ideas that you've used before, and it gives a fresh take on each story. Just as you have a fresh director for each story, and a fresh team that work on design and all that kind of thing.
Well, I'm just saying this on a personal level, and I understand he took the risk there, but I think Chris Chibnall, when he decided he was just not going to, he was just going to kind of reboot everything, and writers and musicians. Yeah. I think, and this is my take, because this is a testament to you, to Mark, and to Kef, and to all those people who've worked before. I think Doctor Who works well when it brings back, I hate the word classic, but when it gets back to its roots, when it's get back to the things that had made it well to get it to this point. And if you kind of disavow it, it to me, for people like myself who enjoyed classic Who for what it was for ourselves, you kind of lose that feel. And a lot of people have been telling me, and I think this is more of the show direction, that they kind of feel that this is Doctor Who, but it's not the Doctor Who that I know.
Yeah, but how many times can you save the universe? You have to stand back and do some intimate stories for a while.
No. There's no. You can have the intimate stories, but I think RTD did it well. You can, or Moffat did it well. You can bring in the Cybermen and the Daleks, and then throw in a Weeping Angel. You can bring in the Centaurans and any of the classic ones, and then you can bring in the Jejune and the Ood. You can kind of siphon everything, and then they kind of just melt together as wonderful, so that the classic comes into the new, and music like Dominic's can be wonderfully be impressed by everybody, and then everybody goes back and listens to what they hear when they're watching the Sixth Doctor, like myself, when they're watching that first moment of the Trial of the Time Lord and going, wow, this is awesome. And Dominic, I think everything that you've done for us, thank you for everything you've done to make Doctor Who so it can continue on there. And I want to thank you for coming on our show, and you are welcome back anytime. Is there any, what's your web presence, just so people can follow you at this moment? So just keep up with it.
Where can we buy your records?
There you go.
Yes, exactly. Where can we buy your stuff?
I have a website which is a bit out of date, so I won't. It's Dominic-Glynn.com. But my best present, to be honest, is my SoundCloud account, because that's where I put the music that I've done. If anybody is interested, just look me up on SoundCloud. I think you'll find me there. And I can't remember what the actual address is. It might be No Bones. I can't remember. But if you just do a search for me, I think you'll find me. But SoundCloud is probably the best place to go.
Everybody, please go to SoundCloud now and check out Dominic Glynn. Dominic, thank you for coming on. Everybody, stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to wrap up the show, and we're going to come back with our final thoughts. Thank you for staying with us and continue to become part of the legend.
Every year, tens of millions of people flock to Florida for its sunny beaches and world-famous tourist attractions. Most never learn about the strange and unusual locations just off the beaten path. From the UFOs of Gulf Breeze to Robert the Haunted Doll in Key West, learn about the myths, monsters, and legends from the dark side of the Sunshine State with author Mark Muncy and illustrator Terry Schultz in their books Eerie Florida and Freaky Florida from the History Press. Find them at eerieflorida.com or wherever books are sold.
Hi, this is Dominic Glynn, composer from Doctor Who. You're listening to Krypton Radio.
Now on Amazon.com. Or Calls of Cries, a Civil War novel by Mark Berry. Isaac Wells is an innocent farm boy living in upstate New York. His dreams are shattered by a treacherous brother and the onset of a devastating civil war. War Calls and Love Cries is a fast-moving historical narrative. It is an emotional roller coaster ride and a riveting must-read book that you will think about and talk about for a long time to come. War Calls, Love Cries is the kind of book you will cherish for a lifetime. On Amazon.com today.
From some of today's best-selling, award-winning authors comes 22 page-turning tales, Cursed Lands.
Cursed Lands will lead you through one doomed world after another in a haunting dystopian urban fantasy.
Join the courageous as they battle for survival across worlds where fae, vampires, angels, witches, and more roam freely.
Cursed Lands is coming soon on Apple Books, Kobo, and Nook.
Pre-order your copy for just 99 cents today.
How you doing, everybody? This is KG Bethlehem. I'm an author of a new book called Certain Moment of Time. It's a collection of short stories. These short stories range from post-apocalyptic, dystopian, anti-utopia, as well as general fiction. You can find Certain Moments of Time on sale at Amazon.com, where you can purchase the ebook format as well as paperback format. You can also purchase it at Lulu.com, paperback format, and will be on sale soon at BarnesandNoble.com.
Welcome back to the Legend of the Traveling Tardis as we wrap up and I get over my ibuprofen. Melanie, you said that you were looking up Dominic Glynn's site on
Yes.
SoundCloud.
Yes, yes,
What
yes.
is the official site? Because it does get a little confusing if you try to look up No Bones too.
If you search for Dominic Glynn, sometimes there's two different ones that'll pop up. But his is No Bones -2. You could possibly go directly to it if you go to soundcloud.com/nobones, NOBONES -2.
And please check it out for our good friend Dominic. Some really terrific music on there. I just want to wrap up because we did get a little bit into the poll and then we had the interview with Dominic. But Mackenzie, what do you think of Sagan's music? And I'm going to throw this in there as just a final thought to this since we're kind of wrapping up. I don't want to say it's unfair to Sagan because Murray Gold was absolutely brilliant. And I think, I'm not going to tell Dominic, but he's up there with one of my favorite composers because he really, some of the music that I listen, that goes through my head when I'm thinking about Doctor Who is all of his, besides the theme song. But what do you think, Mackenzie, about Sagan's music?
I like his music a lot, though, to be honest, when I listen to something like Murray Gold and I'm not actually at the TV or what it's, I'm like, oh, that's Doctor Who. So it's one of those I can associate. I haven't done that yet with Sage, but I don't say that necessarily is a bad thing. It's different, change is good. We have to keep moving, and so long as you remember who we are in the way, and that's kind of like what we're doing right now. We're regenerating, and everything's regenerating. But
I think Melanie Mackenzie hit it on the point. When you hear any of Murray Gold's music, where it be the Doctor's theme, which I utterly fell in love with, the Doctor's theme in all of its variations, and when they were performing it over in the BBC orchestra, I was like, and they had that one singer stepping on the platform on stage, and she was singing, I'm like, my heart melted. And even the moment when they Capaldi regenerates in the Jodie, they played that song, I was like, I know who that is. It was almost like a farewell to Murray for all he did. So, I think it was just recognition, just having something to relate to in any piece of work almost with Murray Gold's stuff. But what do you think on that?
I think Sagan's work is very ethereal, and he's still it's a completely different. It's a departure from everything that we're used to in New Who from Murray Gold. Murray's had that longevity where he's given you that muscle memory in your ears of the motifs, whose songs or what emotions he's starting to bring up. So I think Sagan will have that over time. It is just a different kind of style, and that again, we've got one season of him, so eventually he will probably have just as much different kind of feels that you'll be getting for his music, just like Murray's.
Yeah, but I just want to wrap this up. When you hear any of Murray's, right away. You're already in Doctor Who mode. When you hear Sagan's, I don't think it's yet. Mm-hmm. But there's nothing that if somebody were to play it, I would think it was background music to something else there. But we are wrapping up the show. And Sage, where could people find the Hanging with Web show umbrella team, including the Legend of the Traveling Tardis team, coming up convention-wise?
Well, we're going to let you know.
We have a great convention scheduled this year. We will be coming up at in the early weeks of April. We will be at UltraCon
in
Miami, in South Florida. Following that, I think we are at MegaCon in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
In July, we are working toward Fanboy Expo in Knoxville.
Oh, and you missed one in June.
Tennessee. In June, we
have the great IndieCon with Chuck Fresh and the
That's
Indie
right.
Originals.
IndieCon here in Brevard County and on the Space Coast. Indie Originals. After that, we have, let's see. Where are we? July, which is Florida SuperCon.
That's correct.
And we may have a presence at San Diego. We're working on that out right now.
Yes. We're wiggling that around.
And then in August, in late September, early September, we have DragonCon.
DragonCon,
yes. And multiple author and conferences in Queens. So we are going to be everywhere. So keep an eye on the Hangin' with Web show Facebook page and Twitter account and all of those places. And the Legend of the Traveling TARDIS, because we got panels and things coming up for our Traveling TARDIS team.
They do.
Right.
So it's going to be awesome.
Keep an eye up on our social media, including Twitter and Facebook, for all the information that will be touring the Hangin' with Web show team. And Sage, where could somebody who's interested in partnering with us find a way to partner with the Hangin' with Web show and all of its radio shows.
If you would like to partner with the Hangin' with Web Show, you can contact me, Sage, at hanginwithshow.com. That's HANGIN with show.com.
And that's all we got today. Listen, folks, thank you for joining us as always. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Mackenzie, and the Hanging With team. We will be back next week with a new episode as always, and we ask that you please continue to listen and become part of the legend.